This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.
Hi, this is Dominic Pace, who plays Gecko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian, and you are listening to ConverSWation's podcast.
Catchy. ConverSWations, you're the one. You make Star Wars lots of fun.
Yeah, you do.
ConverSWations, may the Force be strong with you. Sing it, Bubby.
Doobie-doobie-doo.
Yeah, Bub.
Pat and Chavo, you're so grand. Never afraid to lend a helping hand.
That's true.
ConverSWations, may the Force be strong with.
Absolutely be strong with.
I see what you did.
Oh, ConverSWations, may the Force be strong with you.
Hello, and welcome to ConverSWations. I'm Charles.
And I'm Pat, and this is episode 147. Since the days of the Old Republic, inorganic beings have been a constant presence in Star Wars. These rambunctious robots have stolen the screen and our hearts with their metallic wit, mechanic heroics, and circuitry sacrifice. Delve deep with us on a droid discussion.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Who are we talking about tonight?
K-2S0!
I find that highly irregular.
He's fine. He's very fine. So, K-2S0, some would call him Kaytwo, or simply K, was a KX series security droid, and he, along with the other versions of that model, were manufactured by Arrakid Industries on the deep core world of Volter.
Now, isn't that pretty cool? Because they also manufactured the Viper probe, as we saw in Empire Strikes Back. You know, like those yeah, that is so cool.
I mean, I'm sure they had a security contract with the Empire, because,
Yeah.
security droids are their speciality.
And they were so tight with the Empire that they actually had and contained highly secure information about Galen Erso on their local servers on the planet Edu, like we saw in Rogue One. That's how close they were to the Empire and how highly regarded they were for their security towards the Empire itself.
Yeah, and they had presumably military contracts with the Empire for several types of different droids. But the KX series security droid is certainly unique.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That whole series is like rules bending, I would say.
Yeah, their main characteristic, I would say, is that sort of imposing stature.
Yes.
They are quite large, quite tall, and obviously quite strong. So, they were used as enforcers and executor droids, which is not something that's pleasant to think about. But, for 50,000 credits, one of these could be yours.
That's like a Tesla.
It's a small price to pay. Yeah, I mean, this thing could lift up a Tesla. But not only that, do they have that strength? It's the Tesla is not designed to be picked up by a KX series security droid. So you're pretty much going to have to get rid of the KX series droids.
Or whatever.
Just my bounty. So there's a Kelly MacDonald reference.
Yeah, reference. Yeah, Skeleton Crew.
Yep, maybe. So their data banks were packed with analysis for algorithms and probability, as well as deep knowledge of the Imperial data net, which is why K2 is always spouting out probabilities and and algorithms and things, because that's a large part of his data core, which he's able to thankfully tap into even once he's joined the rebellion, which is quite handy for the crew.
It is, because not only were the quote-unquote battle droids banned by the Imperial Senate before, of course, it was dissolved, the KX series were considered security droids. So they bent the rules that way as the burgeoning Empire's suppliers, so that they could have these droids that were super strong, super intelligent, had their own built-in comms panels, and like you said, they had the ability to not only do those things, but also recognize Imperial military code and also respond to the Imperial military commanders. They were like almost embedded Imperial droids that seemed innocuous, but they weren't. They were highly trained, highly programmed, basically soldiers that the Imperial Senate, okay, we're fine with this, but ultimately led to their downfall.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's the sneakiness of the Empire is, you change something's primary function and, get away with it. Then when things are still kind of developing in terms of the Empire, and then, once it's the full-fledged Empire, it's like, okay, well, now we can have these things do what they were really intended for, which is to intimidate and kind of cause this level of forced order, not first order, but forced order that that most people weren't necessarily expecting. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, now that the Empire's taken over, now we can have these things patrol. And as we saw in Andor, they, picking people up, two at a time, one in each hand, and just, walking around with them like they're carrying a 6-pack. So it's interesting too, because they were manufactured to boost the intimidation of civilians, and they were 2.16 meters tall, which is quite tall. It's almost up to Rob's belly button, but but K-2S0 almost. K-2S0 was manufactured in 12 BBY, and he was assigned to an Imperial detachment on the planet Wikeko. And while he was there, he encountered a disabled Imperial cruiser, inside which he found one Cassian Andor, who he immediately attempted to arrest, as a security droid does. And a couple of Andor's fellow spies found and flipped K2's kill switch.
Yes, but before they found that kill switch, Cassian, quote-unquote, fought K-2S0.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
He jumped on his back.
Okay, there's only very few scenarios that you would think that a human
survives.
Would be able to even go toe-to-toe with a K2 model security droid. And let's not forget that the K2, or the KX in this case, but K2 in specifically, that entire line was programmed to be able to communicate with people and interact with them. They were not as refined as the C-type droids like C-3PO, which were more protocol droids. So immediately...
They were anti-protocol.
Exactly. So that helps inform K2's personality. He's abrasive and somewhat...
Yes.
He's just not socially correct, right? He's got that sort of edge. He's more about the reality of things. He's more real, and he doesn't care what you think. Somewhat like Chopper. Although I think Chopper's more by choice than design. Let's just go that way. But yes. So K2 basically was trying to arrest Cassian Andor. It was only because they found the kill switch that he actually survived this encounter with K2, because he would have destroyed Cassian Andor.
Yeah, his likelihood of survival was low. Very low.
What do you think? Okay, I wrote a note in my notes. What do you think? 3PO's odds of Cassian Andor surviving a battle with K-2S0. Let's hear them.
They're low. Very low.
Not high. Very high.
No. Let's just say in the Gamorrean betting circles, he's a 5,384 to 1 odds on that one.
Oh,
I know.
wow.
I know. It's not good.
Oh,
It's not
man.
good.
That's, wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So K2 was droid napped and reprogrammed by Cassian. And as he tried to wipe his memory banks, he was only able to wipe about 30% of them. And then, of course, he gave him a hard reboot and he gave him orders. And K2 complied. So he's like, well, I guess that worked. So, I mean, it should have, because he's been reprogramming droids since he was 6 years old.
Since I was 6 years old.
So since then, he was reprogrammed and loyal to Cassian's cause, which is the rebellion against the Empire. So having retained 70% of his memory, K2 remained able to access Imperial databanks and networks, keeping him in the loop as far as Imperial processes, allowing the band of rebels to stay ahead of any surprises on behalf of the Empire. Yeah, so that gave them an advantage.
It did. And basically, they reprogrammed him like from a PC to a Mac, basically.
I don't know what that means, but okay. Take your word for it.
Sure.
But in Off-Screensville, K2 was in Yavin for a short time where he ran into R2-D2 and C-3PO. And that must have been an interesting encounter. Which led me to think, imagine, because who else had been at Yavin at one point was Chopper. So imagine him having an argument with Chopper.
Can you imagine that level of one-liners between R2-D2, C-3PO, and Chopper? Well, first of all, okay, let's go back in time here. If you want to hear more about those two droids, well, three of them, in fact, we've got R2's episode is episode 90. We've got Threep's episode, which is 110. However, we also talked about 3PO in episode 12.
Yeah, way back.
July 19, 2019, we talked about 3PO.
Wow.
Just to let you know on that one. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot of history there. These three droids together, and you think about K-2S0's demeanor and the way he interacts with people, he would be right up their alley. I mean, R2-D2, C-3PO, Chopper, and K-2S0. It's like a dream team of droids.
It's a nightmare for everyone that's around him.
Yes, for sure.
So, like, you got work to do. Can you get back to your jobs, please? See R2? I told you they wouldn't listen. Just terrible. Yeah.
Chopper, how dare you?
So, obviously we're first introduced to him in Rogue One, and at that point we already see him teamed up with Cassian, and he assists in rescuing Jyn Erso. Congratulations from a labor camp. And once she was sprung, they took on the mission to find and kill her father, Galen, who, as we know, was in charge of production of the Imperial planet-destroying superweapon, the Death Star. So,
Death Star.
Death Star, sí, la estrella de morir. La estrella de morir. Is that right, Ro? I think so. Anyway, that's our former podfather, Ro Desda, of the Scarif podcast. Yes, so this is off the rails already.
Yep.
We're 15 minutes in, so yeah, okay,
that's
fine.
Standard.
Whatever.
Yeah, we're fine.
We're behind the ball on this one. Must go faster. So
thank God for editing. Yeah.
Oh, we'll put this part in the beginning because this part goes there and that part goes here.
This part goes nowhere.
Well, it's gonna go somewhere because at the destruction of Jedha City, K2 was with the ship and he was able to fly into where the team was and effectively extract them before the sand and debris engulfed everything, including our friend Saw Gerrera. So had he not stayed with the ship, then they would have been in a tight spot because they would have been stuck like Saw, and they wouldn't have made it out. So they would have had the only knowledge of the hollow that Galen sent, and it would have died with them. And then nobody would have known about the Achilles heel of the Estrella de Morir. So,
and even with that, of course, they had to believe Cassian on his word that he saw that projection, right? And Jyn Erso. Jyn Erso.
Right. But he had to vouch for her.
Right. And if it wasn't for her and Chirrut Imwe
and Baze, we got
Baze Malbus, exactly. So
and the pilot.
Bodhi Rook. Yes. So if they had not escaped Saw Gerrera's grasps at this point, every step of this movie is critical for the rebellion. So let's just state that right now. But way back in July 16th, 2020, we appeared on the Scarif Podcast's episode of Saw Gerrera, and we talked about this. And shout out to the Podfather Ro and, of course, Brad. So if you want to go back there and listen to that, we delve deep inside what Saw Gerrera did and where he ended up being in Rogue One. So it's a very interesting character arc for him, where he seems a little bit sort of crazy in Rogue One, but we provide context for where he is at that point.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I think that's the last time they've spoken with us, which, I mean, you know, I don't blame them.
5 years ago.
But, speaking of Scarif, when the team is on Scarif, K2, Jyn, and Cassian infiltrate the base and make their way to the data vault. And K2 is able to open the vault so that Jyn and Cass could obtain the Stardust file on Galen's Death Star design flaw.
Yes.
So if he wasn't there, they wouldn't have been able to even get in there in the first place. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, then once the Imperial reinforcements arrived, K2 closed the blast doors so that, you know, it bought them some more time to climb.
My God.
I know.
Climb. Okay, before we get to the heart-wrenching scene of K2, let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Dad, look at the droid selling queso.
Shh, it's not polite to talk about others like that.
It's okay, kids. What are the chances he's gonna hear us?
It's high. It's very high. Don't worry. You can make up for your embarrassment by procuring some of my queso. It has flavor.
Only K2's Mucho Queso is made from a blend of Bantha and Thala siren milks.
Here, ingest this.
Ew, it stinks.
I could say the same for you.
What?
This is so good.
Congratulations. Your taste buds are being rescued.
Daddy, let's buy it.
Your behavior, young lady, is continually unexpected.
Rebels will love the home-style meltiness of K2's Mucho Queso. The Empire? Well, Marva said it best.
Let's get going, kids.
Try K2's Mucho Queso. You'll love it. Cassian said you had to.
And we're back, and thanks to our sponsors, K2's Queso, which is perfectly appropriate. You know, you can find them in all of your local grocers.
Sure.
It's definitely tasty, and it's very popular with the kids, too.
Yeah, and it's good for the diabetes. So, so where were we? Oh, right, the bad part. Yeah, so the Imperial enforcements arrived to the base where Jyn, Cassian, and K2 had infiltrated to get the file, the Stardust file.
Yes, and it's recalled to the point where early in the movie where K2 had some reservations about the fact that Cassian had given Jyn a blaster pistol.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And which eventually he had said that you did know that was me, right? And Jin replied, "Of course, yeah."
She didn't.
She didn't. No, it was a completely blind shot. But at this point, because of the progression of their characters, as Cassian and Jin were climbing into the data center, she had given K2 her blaster.
Well, to be fair, he thought that if she was going to get one, he should also get one.
Yes, right.
And he did not get one.
He did not.
Which is why he was so gear hurt about it, because he had said, hey, if she's going to get one and you don't trust her really, you trust me, so why don't I get one?
Yes. So she gave him her SE-14C blaster pistol as they climbed to protect himself from what she knew was coming, right? The onslaught of stormtrooper assaults. And that closed that loop of trust, right? Because their relationship was a lot more contentious. Like you said, congratulations, you're being rescued from Wobani. But now she's invested in this, the rebellion, and she sees him as a very important cog of that rebellion. She
and an ally.
Yes, yeah. And so it was very touching. And it leads to quite an emotional part of this movie. And we've talked about this before with the Bolstein's Kenobi. We've talked about this several times of how you have a droid who is meant to be this sort of mechanical, lifeless assembly of gears and programming, yet they elicit a response of a human type of character. And as K-2S0 is being blasted from all angles, you can't help but feel sorrow for the fact that he's dying in front of these two characters, that he's trying to help them as he's yelling or saying climb to get to that Stardust data tape.
Yeah, and it's again, we've talked about the many successes they had because of his involvement, and had he not been droid napped and reprogrammed in the first place, then I don't think they would have had anywhere near the success that they had, let alone be able to get the stolen data tapes and bring down this Empire superweapon, for sure.
Oh, for sure. And he provided this hidden or inaccessible Empire-sided data stream that no one else would have had if it wasn't for Andor and his ability to tap into that. And so it gave them a very important inside track into what the Empire was doing. But it gave them the impression that the Empire was present. And we saw that on Jedha with Saw Gerrera's partisans, where they were fighting the stormtroopers and the Imperial battalion that was on Jedha. And K2, who looked like an Imperial operative because he had all the stamps, everything, he gave them an Imperial level of legitimacy where he was able to straddle both sides of the Imperials and the Rebellion. And so if it wasn't for the Rogue One team, they wouldn't have had this flaw to exploit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jyn Erso and her father had a fractured relationship.
Yes.
And because she was raised by Saw Gerrera, and Galen moved to the side of the Empire as he was doing his research and all that kind of stuff. So as we saw through Rogue One, that trust did rebuild itself through the transmission that she saw just before Saw Gerrera died.
Right. He kind of reconciled a lot of things that had come between them.
Right.
And that kind of allowed her to have a different point of view on why he did what he did, why he was working for them in the first place, even though he knew that they were evil. Like, they had left the Empire and gone to a remote place to farm just to get away from them because he had known how bad they were. And then he went back and worked for him. And I don't think she understood that, which, then he was able to explain that through the holo. And kind of makes sense of a senseless 15 years or so.
Yeah.
Where he had left her and abandoned her for the sake of the Empire, who he claimed to have hated for not only ruining his life but also being a terror throughout the galaxy. So it's one of those things where someone leaves for that and you're like, what the hell, and then to get that sort of, they value me as a scientist, and they would find someone else that was able to do it, but at least this way I can plant this fail safe, this sort of mechanism to bring this whole thing down that they won't expect, and at least that gives us a chance.
Yeah.
And so, someone who was devoted to the Empire wouldn't have done such a thing. So had he abandoned the project, there wouldn't have been a failsafe to exploit in the first place.
That's perfectly said, because that brought them together, right? Where she had this influence of Saw Gerrera from her infancy, and his rebellious side is that no one is to be trusted, and ultimately she grows up and sees the universe as a bunch of people who she can't trust. You've got the rebellion who is latching on to, holy crap, this one scientist has programmed a fatal flaw into this ultimate planet-destroying super weapon. We have to exploit that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the other part of it is, you've got this inside man, and that's why they were so keen on finding Jyn, is because nobody else is going to be able to get through like she will. You know what I mean? So it's like all of those things that were linchpins in the success of any of these missions were all really reliant on her involvement.
Absolutely.
And of course, then the whole catalyst of that is that Cassian went with K2 going to save her from the transport,
Yeah. And Stardust itself. Stardust was the key word that informed not just K2. He read that and she understood that as her keyword, really.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
it. That's the one. That was the file that they had to have to upload.
She knew that was going to be the one, yeah.
And as K2 was dying, literally being blown away by stormtroopers, as he had illuminated the Stardust data file, that's where they knew that this is with the key information they had to get to the Rebel Alliance.
Absolutely. And so that's again, when we're talking about the importance of that whole film and that whole series of events on the greater outcome of the galaxy, that those events are key to that, and the events only happened because of K2's involvement.
Oh, God.
As Star Wars does, always, they get you to invest in these mechanical, non-humanoid characters. And he had his sarcasm and his quips and his somewhat acidic verbal fencing that he would do, but you still loved him as a character because ultimately he was for the rebels. And as he died, the first Rogue One character to die on this assault was quite heavy, and you absolutely felt that impact immediately.
Yeah, so let's just be clear, because as we've both seen Skeleton Crew, the droid on that was decapitated.
True.
And he quote unquote died. But as we know, every character in Star Wars can come back. Oh, not everyone. Not the ones that get a lightsaber to the gut. Oh wait. Okay, not the first one to get a lightsaber to the gut. But all the
But
other ones, yes. So, so let's be clear. K2 is out of commission for sure.
yeah,
Could it be rebooted? But maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the good news about K2 is that there's a little series called Andor,
Oh man,
and season
yes.
2 of Andor, which is coming up, will feature K2. So
Thank goodness.
Alan
Oh,
Tudyk will be back in the mocap suit to reprise his role in the past tense. And
kind of odd, but yes.
the funny thing about that whole thing was when he and Anthony Daniels were both at Star Wars Celebration, there was a little sort of good humored ribbing between Anthony and Alan because, Anthony's like, oh, I've had to stay trim to fit in the suit. And
Mm.
then, they buckle me into this thing and I'm in it for hours upon hours. This guy just climbs up on a rig with a t-shirt on. He's like, they do the rest from there. He's like, can I get a CG body? I gotta fit inside this suit that I wore, 35 years ago.
Or 50?
Yes, yes,
Sorry.
yeah. I mean, it's a testament to his physique because,
True.
he still fits.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's going to be fantastic. Yeah. Heavily anticipated Andor season 2 coming up. Now that Skeleton Crew, as timeline wise, we've seen that and that's done. Next up should be Andor season 2, and we've been promised appearances by some of the characters that we see in Rogue One, because of course we're marching very close to the Battle of Yavin and the whole bit. So yeah, that's gonna be fantastically interesting. So to see and hear K2 again with his acerbic wit and one-liners is gonna be fantastic.
Agreed.
Um, Before we end this episode, I mean, okay, all of K2's dialogue is immediately amazing and iconic. But is there a particular quote or quip or portion of dialogue that is your favorite amongst all the awesomeness that is K2?
The one that I use a lot in my general life, as well as in all of our chats, is something along the lines of Cassian said I had to.
Oh,
So that's become probably my most used of K2's lines.
nice.
Yeah, whenever something comes up in our group chats and all, it's at least once a week.
Yes, Cassie's that I had to.
Yes, that's. Mm-hmm.
And the way he delivers it is so dry and so disarming. It's phenomenal. The one I chose is a little bit different because of the backstory to it, and it is the quiet. And there's a fresh one if you mouth off again. So this is when he slaps Andor in that skirmish, and Cassian and company are in there. And
These are prisoners.
yes,
I'm taking them to imprison them in prison.
exactly, in prison. And he smacks him. And for that instant, you see Andor smile because Diego Luna did not expect that to happen. But Alan Tudyk he slapped him as just like an ad lib. And so that is captured on screen and they kept it in there. So that's what I love about that scene is that the fact that it's off the cuff, but it's K2 within the movie, sort of
He was selling it
did
for
his
sure.
yeah, exactly, and it helps seal the deal with them. Well, they're eventually captured, but K2 is able to get away and ultimately save the rest of the crew when the test on blowing up Jeddah is done. So yeah,
But could you imagine getting slapped by a KX series security droid?
yeah, you'd think you'd be flying across the courtyard.
It was a love tap.
That made you fly 20 feet. Fly, fly, fly.
Oh boy.
Woo. Well, there we go. That's K2. We've had a
Yeah.
wonderful movie, and
And just such a fun character.
yes. Oh yeah.
He really is great. And yeah, just a nice addition to our droid discussions.
Oh yeah.
For more of those,
Mm.
you can find us on our very own website
Ah.
at ConverSWations.com, Facebook.com/ConverSWations, on X, we're at Swations.
Mm-hmm.
We have an Instagram account, ConverSWations, over there. We're also at ConverSWations on Threads and CommerceSWations on Etsy.
Which, by the way,
Huh?
we have a new addition to that our Etsy
Oh.
shop.
Oh, do we? Oh,
Yes, we do.
yes, oh,
Oh.
I'm, my Jeff Goldblum is coming out. I'm very excited. Yes, okay. So,
Yes.
so check that out. And also, we have our link tree that has all of those and more at link.tree/ConverSWations. And if you're looking for more, we're also still, I think, proud founding members of the Red 5 podcast network at bio.link/Red5.
Yes, Ro has gifted us another couple of months.
Perfect. Well, then in that case, this is a bad idea. I think so. And so does Cassian. What do I know? My specialty is just strategic analysis.
Greetings, listener. Just a reminder that the podcast you just heard is a proud member of the Red 5 Network family. Red 5 Network offers you a great variety of shows you'll be sure to love. So the next time you're itching for quality content, make sure you head over to Red 5 Network. You'll find this podcast along with a whole lot more. All wings report in. It's the Red 5 Network.